this is a really anticipated film, most anticipated movie of the year. We both watched Oppenheimer 2023, written for the screen and directed by the one and only Christopher Nolan. We all know who he is. There's no need for any introduction.
No, we've talked about him multiple times, and
I'm a Nolan dick rider. Like I'm a Nolan dick rider.
You are. You're like the young dude who was in the film, like because you got into film when you were like in freshman year high school, and those directors that like speak to young men at that age are like fucking Christopher Nolan or Tarantino.
Yeah.
And like you got into those. And so of course it's like nostalgic reasons too, of like why you're always gonna see every movie that comes out from him.
Yeah. But also his movies are like exciting. Yeah, Christopher Nolan is one of those directors that you get into, but even like 12 years later, 10 years later, I still like get really excited about going to see a Christopher Nolan movie. Yeah. He's like one of two directors in the mainstream. I'm gonna like see it first day if I can. And that's like Christopher Nolan and Quentin Tarantino. You know what I mean? And like they're like the last breed of guys who only shoot on film, fucking get huge budgets, total creative control, and then like business wise they like do really well. You know, like they get a back end and like but like Christopher Nolan is just he's sick, dude. Like what can we say? Like we did a video a few months ago of what we expect from Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, and I will say I was not. Like, what I saw in Oppenheimer, I didn't expect it to be the way that it was. But Dunkirk was not what I expected it to be. Yeah. Tenet, not what I expected it to be. But, like, after you rewatch those movies, you're just like, holy fuck, these are masterpieces. Yeah. And those movies are not like Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer is probably his most serious movie. It's his most rounded. Contrasting with, like, Tenet, it's just, like, totally different. I fuck with it. I mean, I don't know where we're going to start with this movie.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I wouldn't say I'm a Nolan dick rider, but I am definitely like a big fan of Christopher Nolan. I think his movies, being as high budget as they are and being as good as they are, it's kind of like you have to give him a good budget. You know what I mean? Because like he pulls through every time. It seems like even with Tenet. Personally, I love that movie. And
I love Tenet a lot.
I feel like as a filmmaker, he has a very unique style, and the way he thinks about things are so creative. Like he's so genius in like certain aspects of film and film structure, and in other aspects, I've always felt like he has some shortcomings. Like we watched The Dark Knight recently, like a couple months ago. We mentioned how his dialogue is always something related to the film. Like I feel like when you're watching a Christopher Nolan film, you know you're watching a Christopher Nolan film. There's never any, like, grander thing to it. Even when I was watching Dunkirk, I felt like, okay, I'm watching Dunkirk, Christopher Nolan film. You know what I mean? Like, the way it was structured, the way it blah, blah, blah. This movie, he finally is able to get over that hurdle and his weakness of, like, having a character piece. He's never been great at character pieces or, like, dialogue that structures around, like building a character up. But I feel like this is able to, like, finally get over that hump, and he's able to, like, craft a very cohesive story about Oppenheimer and about, like, the flaws and the goods and the bads of this believable real-life person. Yeah. You know? And that's a testament how far he's come as a filmmaker and just, like, his skill level that he's at right now, you know?
Oh, yeah. He's, like, still pushing. He's still saying the same shit where it's, like, he's still saying, dude, cinema still hasn't reached its potential of what you can tell in a story and what you can do. He's still pushing the boundaries every time. And this one, he pushes the boundaries. He goes places where, like, I haven't really seen that shit before. He's, like, really trying, like, he swings so hard in this movie. It's insane. And he does not give a fuck if you understand what the fuck people are talking about or what's going on. He does not give a fuck about that at all. And I respect that, like, so much.
But I get the sense that he knows what he's talking about. And I get the sense that the actors on set know what they're talking about. Yeah. Like, the mise-en-scène of it all, like, bleeds through everything. You can tell how dedicated people are to this. And you can tell that he's pushing himself in a direction he's never gone, and he's still willing to explore that. And I think, like, a lot of the best directors are not people that get complacent, but they're people that, like, keep trying to swing regardless of a miss or not.
No, he's not trying to crowd please, dude. No. But at the same time, he's, like, still crowd pleasing without crowd. I don't know how. It's so sick, dude. Like
he's still true to himself.
The way that he packs everything into this movie is just so crazy. I want to say this, though. This movie is not like an action movie.
No.
It's not what you're like a typical Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan movies are like typically action movies. They're all action movies. This movie is literally like a courtroom drama. People talking to like guys talking to each other in rooms for most of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 3 hours long, and there's only like a small portion of what you thought like the movie. I thought the movie was going to be more about like them like experimenting with the bomb, like trial and error, like that whole. Like I was going to be about how they like the sort of the process of how they designed the bomb and all of that. That's not really like explored that much in this movie. It is like, but it's kind of more like a montage, and we see like the behind the scenes of the inner workings of like the United States government, the schools, kind of where he came from as like a physicist and shit.
Mm-hmm.
What I went in, which I talked about in our last when we talked about it, was the time, space, and memory aspects of this movie. I was looking forward to seeing what he's going to do with that, because every movie with Christopher Nolan, there's always something he does with time, space, and memory, and it's just always like a unique approach. This one is like a crazy sort of elliptical, scene to scene, like cut to cut, like fucking just totally different places, totally different time, totally different characters, just like back and forth, like just like going like just keeps changing up the scenes like all the time.
Oh, I know.
It doesn't even matter. Like in the beginning, you see him in the small ass room getting interrogated, and you're like, what is this? Like what is this? And it's like, oh, it's later on in the timeline of a linear thing. But like the sort of elliptical editing he does in this movie, it's sick, dude. It's really sick. Yeah,
it's crazy. The editing for me was the part that like threw me off the most. Aside from like this being a fucking courtroom drama, which is like not really what you expect from Nolan.
No, not
but
at all.
It was fucking good.
No,
it's still really good.
Yeah.
Like, as a Nolan fan, I was still like, okay, I'm fucking invested in
this.
this.
Yeah.
Like,
I was just surprised that was gonna happen. I was like, dude, this guy is going ham with the fucking dialogue scenes.
Yeah,
dude.
he is, and he was good,
really
and that's I'm proud of him, because I feel like that's always been like kind of his weakest aspect of his dialogue, but like he's really able to like fucking pull it through here. The editing was so jarring because it's so quick, dude. Like it's so fast. Like they must have shot so much.
No, they did. And they had all those actors.
It's insane, dude. The fucking amount of actors they have in this, the whole cast, it's like humongous, dude.
Yeah.
Just the way they like breeze through everything, and you feel like the movie's like has this constant pace of like you're going down a river of like he's telling the story, and he's not going to stop for you. You know what I mean? No. Once you got in the flow of it, though, it was like really you're so invested in like Oppenheimer's like life and the story, and like compelling as a character that like Cillian Murphy's like able to portray like on a screen. It's just like you're so invested in this guy's life.
Yeah.
And you want to see where it's going, to the detriment of like the world, you know, to the detriment of like he's another thing is like Christopher Nolan, he really fucking knows his audience too, because he's playing with you throughout the movie of like he's gonna subvert your expectations like here and there, you know, and that's something that keeps you like on this like, you know, journey with him, that keeps you interested and engaged. It
keeps you on an intellectual level. You can't go into this movie think you're gonna see like Interstellar or like Inception or like you know, like that type of, if you're like a guy who fucks with like The Dark Knight and you like go into Oppenheimer, and you'll probably like be kind of let down in a way where it's like, no, this is way more intellectual, truthful, scientific. Like it's like a dissertation, bro. It's like if someone's like someone's essay or like their final like their thesis, dude. It's like their thesis in a school, like all packed into one. It's like an AP class in like one movie.
Yeah.
It's his most intellectual movie. The way that the scientists talk to each other, it's just like how a scientist would talk, and it's like there's no sugarcoating what the fuck they're talking about. You're just going to be like, okay, they said something like really like scientific about physics and atoms, and we're just going to have to roll with it.
Yeah, we're going to have to fucking I have to trust that guy. He knows what he's talking about,
But like, you know, it's legit because he has all these like physicists and scientists like consulting on it, and like the guys who wrote the book and his biographers, and just keeps it so like detailed and truthful, like the best of his ability. Yeah. And that's what's so fucking cool. It's several different things going on at once at like several different times, you know. You first have his, you know, who the man was, his personal life. Then you have him, you know, actually like working, like trying to create the bomb, getting hired to create the bomb.
Yeah, like what he's known for.
Right? Yeah. Then you have what's his name, Strauss, played by Robert Downey Jr. First starts out as like a, you know, a chill guy, it seems, but then he kind of becomes Oppenheimer's nemesis and kind of takes him down by the end of it. And then you have this whole McCarthyist McCarthyism aspect of the movie, which I did not think was going to like really be a part of the movie, because it just didn't seem like something Christopher Nolan would do.
Yeah.
But this guy like loves history and shit.
Oh yeah.
And it's not like anything we haven't seen before. It's just like the way that he tells it makes it so unique.
Yeah.
You know?
It's so funny because when I was watching it, like, you know, we're young dudes. Like, we don't have that, like, time reference just built in our head of, like, oh, yeah, McCarthy era. Oh, yeah, like, all, like, Cold War. Of course that was going. Like, of course, like, the nuclear arms race was good. Like, you know, like, you don't have that, like, reference. So to watch it and, like, have it, like, it kind of hits you like that. It's like, yeah, like, fucking, are you a con? Like, you know, like, they're, like, really interrogating, like, him for being part of the Communist Party of America, and, like, you know, World War II history is going on, and, like, the way you have to, like, follow it is, like, it's really, like, intellectual, and, like a it's, like, a history thesis.
It feels really important, and the thing is, like, Christopher Nolan's movies are always, this is the most important event ever to happen, like, we gotta save World War II. We gotta stop World War II from happening. Or like, the world is ending. We gotta go into space. Or like, there's this like secret weapon from the future that's gonna annihilate existence. And it's like, those are more, besides like the World War II one, it's not as sensationalized, but he's taking like fiction and sensationalizing it to be like the most important thing ever. This shit is actually some real shit.
This is actually the most important thing that's
actually,
ever happened.
Yeah, this is actually some real ass, real world shit. During the movie, I was getting so fucking anxious because I was like, dude, this is like actually some shit that could happen. Yeah. Especially the very, very ending. I don't know if we would talk spoilers, but it doesn't really, but like, I'm just saying, like, the last like minute of this movie, I was so on edge. Yeah. Bro, the whole accumulation of this, like, the crescendoing, and he plays the rhythm of this movie plays off so well.
It's so good, dude. Like, that last act, I was like, where the fuck are we going with this? Yeah. And then, like, it pays off so well in the end, where I'm like, he really makes you, like, when the movie ends, you're forced to sit with, like, the ramifications of knowing the society we live in now. Yeah. And that's, like, that's how you know that it's, like, this is done by, like, a master craftsman. Of, like, someone who makes you think about, like, the people you're sitting in the theater with next to.
Yeah, I know he's really trying to push the boundaries of storytelling and things that we've already heard of. Like, I was already familiar with, we all know the story of like Manhattan Project and when they dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and like why they did it. We all know the motivations of that. Like, it's because like, oh, Japan wasn't going to surrender. We're going to lose a lot of people. That's why we did it. Like, we've heard that like a million times, and they go over that in this movie, but it's still like interesting, and it's still like that. The whole like that sequence in the room with all the generals, and they're all talking about it, and Oppenheimer's kind of giving his his point of view on it, and he's a very morally gray character. And I think he finds himself like out of his element at a certain point, because he doesn't really have a side. He's just like a scientist guy who can appreciate the different things, like, either capitalism or communism, what they both can offer, but he doesn't join one. Just kind of like a voyeur, and he's kind of just like a guy who like is in it. He's like observing it, but it seems like he's in it, but he's not. He's just like a guy who observes things. So when he's like observing like the Communist Party and shit, and he's like involved with that, and his wife is a communist, he's just like a guy who's like sightseeing with it. And then the other side of that is like the American way, like the American patriotic red-blooded way, where he's like helping them out, but he's not actually like a red-blooded American. He's just kind of like watching it. Yeah, you know what I mean?
He pushes the boundaries as a scientist because he knows like he can. He's arrogant and he's egotistical in a sense where he's like a curious scientist. He's like, if we can do this, let's do this. And there's a certain point where, like, I mean, obviously, this isn't spoilers because this would happen to anyone, but, like, suddenly you start thinking about, like, the impact of what you've created, right? And that shift is, like, done so well throughout the movie, where you really see that, like, yes, he's gone from a morally gray character to, like, sitting with the guilt of what he's done, and the knowledge of, like, the world could be destroyed at any minute because of what I've created. Because, like, he was the one that, like, when someone said, you can do this, he's like, okay, how far can I take this? And there's something to be said about that, where it's like, you have this knowledge of something greater than just, like the way they were talking about Oppenheimer is, like, you always think about things that are bigger. Like, when Florence Pugh's talking to him, like, you're always thinking about things that are, like, greater than just, like, day-to-day stuff. And I think, like, as that kind of person, you give him the tools to, like, craft something that's, like, greater. Like, of course, he's going to see it through and then be like, oh, fuck. Like, what have I done? You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying like he's like ultimately like feeling like just like immense guilt, but it is like very much like you see how this impacts him as a person. You see how it impacts like the world, like, you know.
Yeah, and also him as a scientist, he has this quote in the movie where he's like, "Theory will only take you so far. We gotta like test it out." You know what I mean? And him as a scientist, he's like so curious to actually put the theory into work. And then when he finally does it, he's like, holy fuck, like I really just like did some shit. Like I didn't even realize like the repercussions of all of this.
Yeah.
And the thing was that I also found really interesting about the movie was his motivation shift, because at first he's like, yo, like I'm a Jew. If Hitler gets a bomb for us, then like I have to this is the only way I can stop Hitler from like killing like people like me and like.
I would say that's inferred, but I would say like also like just in general, if the Nazis win this war, like they're fucked.
Yeah.
They're fucked.
Yeah. But then, so that's his original motivation. However, when they're still making the bomb, during that period of time, Germany surrenders. They're still fighting the war. Germany surrenders. And then there's kind of like this little like point there where he's like, okay, like, should I still, like, are we still going to make the bomb? Like, obviously, you know, if he quit, they would probably still find someone else to probably do it anyway.
Exactly,
but he is still, I think, either in his scientific mind where he has to follow through with his experiment because he wants to like find out what like science is capable of. So he keeps like doing it, and also they're still fighting the war in Japan. At that point, he's convinced the American public or the generals and the army that, oh, this guy is actually a red-blooded American. He wants to create a bomb so we can fight, like we can be the most powerful country in the world. And that's when they feel like he's actually on their side, rather than like his communist past that like Matt Damon brings up. Then we have that whole scene where he gives his advice on like where they should put the bombs or like how big the bomb should be, and you know he actually has an input. He's actually part of whatever the commission or the United States military, like he has like a say. He's like appointed, isn't he appointed? Like he has a security clearance, like appointed.
He is, but like he gets very much involved with like suddenly you're like, okay, he's no longer like, there's a certain point where you're questioning like, is he a scientist or is he a weapon manufacturer?
Yeah, exactly.
And that point, it's like it gets kind of scary, and I think he scares himself a little bit too. You know, Cillian Murphy's so fucking amazing in this. Like people are talking about how good Robert Downey Jr. is in this, and he is really good. The whole cast is really fucking good. Cillian Murphy like deserves at least like an Oscar nomination for this because he's so fucking good as Oppenheimer. He's so good. Yeah,
but just going back to that thread. They do drop the bombs on Hiroshima, and then at first he's like really celebrated. He himself is like kind of like really optimistic about the whole thing. He feels like he's like a hero and shit. And then he like gives that speech where it's like when he gives a speech, he's like saying all these very like he's using really heavy patriotic rhetoric where he's like, yeah, like we fucking got the Germans, we've got Japan. Like, I'm so proud of being American. And then there's like these like edits of him seeing the crowd like melting and shit, and he like steps on
so good
all of that stuff. And then that's like when he's like he first, at that point the guilt sets in, and
I just say before we talk about that, the bomb going off is one of the best parts of the movie.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not gonna spoil it, but it's so fucking good because of like Christopher Nolan's knowledge of like the audience.
Yeah, and that was I was so anxious in that when the countdown's going down.
Dude,
when you were in the theater with like the crowd, like you knew everyone was going through the same shit. It was like complete silence.
Yeah.
Like everyone is going through that same. But like I mean the bomb going off, I mean technically brilliant. Like that's like kind of the whole. That's like the reveal that you want. That's like why you go to see the movie, because in the trailer they like built it up so much with this bomb.
Yeah.
That you're just waiting for that moment to happen when they finally test the bomb. You know?
Yeah. The Trinity test.
Yeah. At a certain point, he's questioning the Americans start questioning his loyalty, because really what happens, really the trigger of that is they realize that the Soviets are testing nuclear weapons. And at that point, because at first, you know, he meets Truman and shit, and he's like, dude, like, Truman's like reassuring him, like, dude, like, only we have these weapons. Like, don't worry, like, the Soviets not gonna get the weapons.
He's like, you're a fucking crybaby out of my office.
Yeah. And he's like, no, like, no one's gonna get the weapon. Like, it's just us who has them and shit. And like, once it's revealed that the Soviets are testing like this bomb, then people are like pointing fingers and shit. And then that's when he gets put on the slab.
Yeah.
And whole like past comes back about the communist shit and like all of that, and he gets like put like he gets put in the doghouse, and then that's like kind of when his whole like the whole spiraling of like
he loses his
the American public like turns on him in a way,
and he loses this like kind of sense of pride that he had for like creating this and like being an American. Like he gets thrown to the like dirt when he gets cut off. Like his security clearance gets cut off eventually. When that happens, you can kind of feel the immense weight of like it's not just the security clearance. You know, it's the fact of like the pride he took in like doing this for his country, like doing this like great service and giving them this immense power like that was taken from him. He's not the one that controls this. He's just the one that like gave it to him, and that's gone. And he's just left with like he doesn't have any pride for what he's done because they've like turned their back on him. Like he just has guilt now. And that at that point in the movie, it kind of shifts from Oppenheimer's perspective to more of like Robert Downey Jr.'s perspective of like telling the story.
The black and white. Yeah, we should talk about. You want to talk about the black and white versus the color?
So the black and white is, I guess, to depict like the most recent timeline to our timeline, right? So it's like it's the farthest in the future is the black and white one, and that's Robert Downey Jr. No,
it's actually the all the color is from Cillian Murphy's perspective, and all the black and white is Robert Downey Jr.'s perspective.
Oh, really?
Because when you watch the film, just like next time you see it, when it's color, it's only through Cillian Murphy's perspective. When it's black and white, there's scenes of Cillian Murphy like in the background, and it's like Robert Downey Jr. doing.
It's like shit. You see like because Cillian black Murphy and white like scenes, from here, you know.
Yeah.
Like
really exactly.
See his face,
and there's a part where he goes to talk to Einstein, and it's in black and white because you're staying with Robert Downey Jr. and they have that conversation that comes back in the end, and that's in color when he's talking to Einstein. So that's like what the black and white is actually perspectives change. It's either Robert Downey Jr.'s perspective or it's like the objective perspective of black and white.
Yeah, I think it's like objective. Like
okay, there's a scene where they're watching film on a screen and they're talking about the damage that happened in Hiroshima. Like he's watching it and then he like looks down because he doesn't want to see it, and like we're seeing him. We're not seeing the screen because we're experiencing what he's experiencing. Because if he was looking at the screen, we would see the screen. But then in that, like we don't see it because he's like looking down and shit. Yeah. It's like a interesting like perspective thing that goes on.
I loved it. Like I love like the storytelling.
Yeah.
And like that ending's so good. Where it's like maybe they weren't talking about you. Maybe they're talking about something more important than like that. Like the way that hit.
Yeah.
It was just so like rewarding and so gut wrenching too.
Yeah.
In a way where it's like this thing they've created is so like immense. Like this like the ramifications of this are so immense that it really leaves you as like a human being living in this time period post nuclear weapons of like fuck, dude. Like this is something that like is so like just like culture shifting and like world changing and like fucking insane, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, it is insane. Like also this thing that I want to look out for more when I see it the second time is that I want to see the shifting loyalties within his base, because that was kind of hard to follow. Like who switched on him and
so
stuff.
Like Benny Safdie.
Yeah, like, Benny Safdie, the guy who was the actual creator of the hydrogen bomb.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
He's cool at first, and then he kind of turns on him in the trial scenes, and then
he's kind of a prick too. Like when you first meet him, you're like, this guy's too smart for his own good. Like he's like a little like fucking like standoffish and shit.
Yeah, and like he kind of looks like Josh Peck a little bit.
Josh Peck is in it.
Benny Safdie kind of looks like Josh Peck a little bit. Like they have the same kind of look to them. It's kind of like yeah.
Dude, it's so crazy how many people are in this. First of all, like fucking Gary Oldman pops up in it, which is he was fucking amazing.
Yeah, he plays Truman.
Fucking Rami Malek pops up in it. Fucking
Josh Hartnett,
Hartnett, our boy's in it. Boy Sweat.
I bet you got really excited when Rami Malek.
I did. I got really excited.
Yeah, can you tell the audience why?
Well, so Mr. Robot, which is the best show on television.
Yeah, Mr. Robot is his favorite show.
It is my favorite show.
Yeah, but I know you were like really excited when you saw it.
I was really excited because
I bet like if we saw it together, I would have turned to you and been like.
Yeah, and I would have been like, okay. Rami Malek's part of this now.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
dude, like the thing is, like I love how you kept seeing him throughout the movie.
Mhm.
And he didn't have a big. I was like, what the fuck? They're not even using that. And then fucking, it's so perfect when they're like, who is the last scientist that's gonna testify? And it's fucking Rami Malek comes out of nowhere, and
Yeah.
you're like, oh shit, like that's
Yeah.
it. And then like he like gives this whole speech.
Yeah, he
about,
locks it down. He locks it down.
Yeah, he locks. He does. He like
Yeah.
he's a closer. in
Yeah,
that.
he's the closer on that of what. Yeah, why
That's-
that guy doesn't get appointed.
Yeah, it's sick.
Yeah, and then you have like Emily Blunt, Florence Pugh. But
Not a lot of actresses, but like a lot of like fucking actors.
Yeah.
like a lot.
But the
dude.
real standout was Roderick from Diary of a Wimpy Kid, the older brother of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, is
Wait,
in the
who's-
movie. He's one of the scientists in the movie.
Who's he play?
He plays one of the scientists in the movie, dude.
Which one though?
Just like he's just one of the guys there, dude. The guy, bro, fucking Roderick from fucking
Yeah, I
Diary of
know
a Wimpy
Roderick,
Kid.
dude. I
Yeah,
know
yeah,
Roderick.
yeah. He's in it, dude.
Dude, there's so many fucking people in this that like I'm like, oh fuck, they were in the dude Dan DeHaan. Damn.
He's one of the scientists in it, and I was like, and my brother was like, dude, it's Roderick. It's Roderick. And I was like, whoa, dude, this is crazy.
Dude, there's so many fucking people. Like I looked at the cast.
Dan
like, What
DeHaan.
the fuck they were? Yeah, Dan DeHaan's
Dan
in a big
DeHaan,
part.
Matt Damon,
Dude,
Casey Affleck.
Casey Affleck was in it.
Yeah,
dude.
yeah.
His part was so good too.
Yeah, that. So I will say this though, when it started getting confusing for me, what was going on is when Casey Affleck gets introduced, because I didn't know. I was kind of like, wait, who is this guy? Good? He's like interrogating him. Is he trying to get like? Is he just trying to fuck him over? I didn't know like what the motivations was or what was going on with
Yeah.
that. That's another thing I'm gonna have to like look for. And then the guy who's in like all the Denis Villeneuve movies.
Yeah.
The guy who's like in
Yeah, Prisoners.
yeah,
and
that
stuff.
one actor that you see.
Yeah, the pilot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that guy. Like, I wasn't sure what his role was in the
He-
movie.
He was a pilot they used him as like the whistleblower to like rat on Oppenheimer. As if he knew Oppenheimer, but Oppenheimer like barely fucking knew him. He just talked to him once.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
like,
They just used them. There was like definitely some. It was a witch hunt
yeah,
against him.
it
It
was
was like evidence that wasn't real. That was
stacked
used
against
Yeah,
him,
yeah.
for
He
sure.
actually was. He actually didn't do anything wrong, dude.
no, he didn't.
He
Like,
just was like a pawn used in the blame for why like the Soviets got the shit, and like basically it was all politics. Robert Downey Jr. wanted to elevate himself by
Yeah.
like
But also-
ratting him out, you know.
also like his reasoning too. Like, and this is. Do you care about getting into spoilers?
I'm kind of already saying a bunch of shit, but it doesn't even matter because this is a movie like you
It's
could
like-
know so much
it's-
about this movie and like
Yeah.
go see it, you wouldn't even know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah,
Still,
but,
it's
like-
confusing. It's confusing.
When like Robert Downey Jr.'s like reasoning for like hating Oppenheimer is so good too, because he's like publicly humiliated me, but like he doesn't understand scientists. You know,
No.
like this whole movie have like come from the time like the framework of like a scientific mind, right? And that is like so cool that like when we get to Robert Downey Jr.'s reasoning for this, it's like so childish. It's so like less than objectively less than like the importance of like what Cillian Murphy's going through in Oppenheimer. You
Mhm.
know?
And like what the movie does really well, there's so many different sides of like it's like there's so much politics in the film, all these sides, but the film doesn't like doesn't have any like bias or any message of like anyone's side. It just kind of presents it in a really objective way.
Mhm.
The only message that it has is like a very like we're all involved in this. Like we're all involved in this shit. Like we could be like gone like that, dude.
I like that. I like that message too, and it's a very like bigger than just film, bigger than movie kind of like story. You know, of like
They definitely overused the music though. There's like times where there was like way too much music going on.
I liked it. For me personally, like I watched it on a really good sound system where like
Yeah.
I can see people complaining like the music never stops. It never stops. Like I feel like it never
Yeah.
like even when it's like a quiet moment, like it's just like a single note or something. On like a really good like sound system, this like fucking is like so good. League's better than Tenet. I hate to say it, but like League's better than Tenet because Tenet had like a
The
lot
mix
of
was
like,
bad. This one still has some issues with the sound mix where you can't hear what people are saying, dude. I felt that a little bit. I'm like, dude, they still haven't figured that out yet, bro. Like that's like everyone's biggest complaint with Tenet and shit. I will say though, I like that this. I mean, I've only watched this movie once, but I think the score in Tenet by Ludwig Göransson is better than the Oppenheimer score. It's more like experimental and like crazy in Tenet because that's a crazy experimental movie, and this one's more like straightforward. We're not gonna have like crazy like synths going off, like crazy like science fiction synths
Yeah.
going off. But it was like, it was a good enough job. I still think that the Dunkirk score, the Interstellar score, are the best scores of any Christopher Nolan movie.
Yeah.
And like all the Hans Zimmer scores are like slightly better than Ludwig Göransson. And Tenet is still really good though, the scores and shit.
What do you think of like cinematography in this? Like, it was like not really much he could work with, but like in terms of like, making like a room of guys talking look good, he like fucking like it's like he's a master at that.
But the thing is, like the purpose of the story is that it's a grounded approach. It's not gonna be any super stylized.
Mm-hmm.
It's just all about like you being there realistically, and that's what Christopher Nolan does. Like he makes everything so realistic. That was the whole thing with The Dark Knight. It's like it's very like grounded, realistic.
Yeah, it's like a grounded
superhero movie. Yeah, and that's like his thing. He's not Hoyt van Hoytman. It's a very objectively like shot. It's like just like naturalistic lighting.
Yeah.
It's not. It has nothing to do with like trying to be like a stylistic like Wes Anderson type movie. But the style of a Christopher Nolan movie is that it's realistic. That's his style. Like Paul Greengrass is kind of like a similar type guy where it's like documentary style. It's not like stylized in a way like you're not supposed to pay attention to the cinematography. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was effortless, like cinematography, which I think is like something you have to tip your cap to, like what he was able to achieve on film and like the black and white and like how good everything looked. Like
also Kenneth Branagh is in this movie too.
Kenneth Branagh is in this. Like, we're gonna fucking name people until this like review's over, because like people are gonna keep popping up in our mind of like.
Dude, Matthew Modine is in it.
Yeah, Matthew Modine, dude.
Yeah, like
fucking he's in it, dude.
The guy from there's like a bunch of a lot of actors. That's probably like what the budget like went to the most, because this movie, like, besides all of the crazy effects and like the bomb shit and like those set pieces, wouldn't have been as expensive but like they had all the actors there. They had to like pay all, because there's $100 million budget. Yeah. Right. He really like swung on this one, and I think it really like landed. Like he's getting a lot of respect now. Yeah. He's getting like a lot of respect. Chris Nolan's getting like a lot of respect now compared to like when Tenet came out.
Yeah, people are saying it's gonna be like Oscar contender, at least like
in
a lot of categories.
Oh yeah.
And which is kind of funny, because I feel like out of a lot of movies that were like hyped up for this year, this is like kind of a sleeper. People are like people are hyped for Barbie Oppenheimer because of like the meme, right? I think it's pretty rated. I think it's pretty like leveled, like the hype for like, I think it kind of it was super hyped up. It's like what movie can live up to like a Christopher Nolan? Like I was going with really high expectations because the reviews were just so good. Yeah. Everyone was saying how fucking good it was. Like Paul Schrader's like, oh, the best movie of the 21st century and shit. And everyone loved it. I'm like, okay, is this like some dick writing going on? There's probably some dick writing going on for sure. There's some. Yeah. But this is, I think, in terms of like Oscar worthy. Yeah. This is like this is the closest Nolan's been to like
winning a director, like getting a director award. Yeah.
I could see it, honestly.
Yeah, well, it's just like the subject matter is so important, and this like period piece and like the acting and all of that, like it's gonna be nominated. Yeah, I mean, it is the best movie I've seen this year that's come out. Like,
yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm gonna see it again, and that's the thing that's like a testament to this movie is like it's a 3-hour long movie, and I'm excited to see it again. Like that, there's something to be said about that.
No, I gotta see it again. It's not you can't watch it just one time. Like, and that's on purpose. You know what I mean? Like Tenet, I'm like, don't see Tenet unless you're gonna watch it twice. Like that's you can't watch Tenet because everyone they watch it one time and they get so pissed off by it, they like just like write it off completely. Like that's like a bad movie. But like once you watch it over and over again, like you can kind of piece it together in your head. It's not about understanding it. It's just about feeling it. You know? Yeah.
And that's what he says in the movie. And he said recently he would be really excited to like direct a James Bond movie. I'm like, fuck yeah, dude. But like, I already feel like I kind of got that with Tenet.
Yeah, like Tenet, Inception. He kind of does, a crazy sci-fi movie, historical movie, crazy sci-fi movie, historical movie.
Well, that's the recent trend now. Yeah, like it's
but pretty... like, his next movie is. I hope he's gonna unload some bullshit.
He's gonna unload something, and then I hope he comes back with a fucking banger of a history movie.
Yeah.
Because I love history, dude.
Yeah, I love history too, and he definitely like loves that. I would say like comparison wise for this movie, like to other shit, like we were talking about, like in the beginning, it was very much a Terrence Malick, Nicholas Roeg movie. I think the biggest influence on Christopher Nolan's aesthetic style and editing is Nicholas Roeg for sure. And there wouldn't be any Christopher Nolan's whole thing is like Nicholas Roeg, and if you don't know who that is, like. Look him up because he's fucking underrated.
He's so good, dude. When I was watching this movie, I was thinking about two movies. I was thinking about Stanley Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove.
Yeah.
Just like a satirical drama, like about like I thought it was so interesting how that's like a satirical drama of the time and what they say about nuclear, like threat that is looming over all of them versus like Christopher Nolan now, years later, reflecting back on that. I think like I don't know, I think they're like kind of two sides of like a similar coin, right? But then the other movie I was thinking about a lot when I was watching Oppenheimer was Insignificance.
Yeah.
With
Nicholas
Rogue and
because it's a bomb
and it's a lot of it has to do with what's his name, Albert Einstein, kind of like reflecting on his involvement of like the nuclear weapon and like the nuclear threat and that panic that he has of like being a scientist and knowing too much. That's done really well, and so I can only imagine that like Christopher Nolan saw that and that like definitely piqued his interest, right?
Definitely Terrence Malick.
Dude, just like the way it was edited, where it's like seamless scene for scene, and what's it called when someone's doing like a voiceover cut, like to a new scene, like a J cut or whatever, all over this movie, and I was like, yeah, dude, it flows together like a Terrence Malick movie for sure, just like the philosophy of it all.
Yeah, and just like the shots of space and like him, like just like the little cuts.
Yeah,
like,
the atoms, like
yeah. That's definitely like the voiceover type shit, and like it's dope. We live in a time where Christopher Nolan is like still like making bangers and just going as hard as he can, dude. And he's gonna just keep doing it because he's like I'm not gonna retire. Like I'm not. He said like they were like, are you gonna be making movies in 10 years? And he said yes. Man, good on him, man. Like Tarantino's like dipping out. Like what the fuck, dude? But like.
It's so funny, too, that we've both seen Christopher Nolan out in public, and it's both been, like, he's just a normal dude.
Yeah,
fucking, like,
kids,
a normal dad. There's something about that I respect so much, dude. He's making these, like, hard-hitting, fucking big blockbuster movies.
They're intense.
He's so, like, taking the time to be so grounded, and you can see that, like, in his movies. Like, he's reflecting on, like, the human condition, as opposed to, like, a flick. It's just more than what a movie is. Like he just pushes it, like he makes it like just a whole other thing. It's so next level. He's still like on a totally different level of other filmmakers. One of the goats of his generation at this point. I already thought that, but like this one, you can't write him off as like being whatever people say about his films, like there's always those stereotypes about Christopher Nolan, like it's like too smart for its own good, it's like too convoluted, or he's like his head is up his ass. But like this one is like not, his head is not up his ass. No.
Like this one is like a very honest, truthful, like grounded, it's a really mature movie.
I do really think mature. He's a little bit like at the beginning of the movie, and like this is my one complaint about it, and I mean like come on, it's called Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
So it's like, of course, it's going to be a little bit like a circle jerk for Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like, oh, look how fucking cool, and quippy this guy is. Like, Cillian Murphy's so fucking smart and cool at the beginning. You know what I mean? Like, that, I thought that was like a little like, this is fucking like, this is like a Nolan bullshit right here. But at the same time, I was like, can't blame him, dude. Like, this is it's a movie about Oppenheimer. It's not a movie about the atomic bomb. It's about the guy.
It's a movie about guys in rooms talking.
It's a movie about our society that we live in.